The meatball is such a classic dish, and anyone with an ounce of Italian blood claims they have the best recipe that was handed down to them from their grandmother. Well, this isn't my grandmother's recipe, and I'm not claiming it's the best, but I think it's pretty damn good. And we're going to start this meatball recipe off with some eggplant. It's not going to be a vegetarian meatball, but this eggplant is going to add texture and flavor to the meatballs. And that's the most important thing with meatballs is the texture. So I'm going to pop these on a sheet tray. I got the oven preheated to 425 Fahrenheit, 220 Celsius. I'm going to sprinkle some olive oil on this. And just brush that olive oil into the eggplant. Hit it with a little bit of salt. I'm just going to roast this in the oven for about 20 minutes until it's tender. After 20 minutes, this is ready to go. It's tender, it's golden brown. Poke it with a knife, we get no resistance. So I'm just gonna grab a spoon and scoop out the flesh into a bowl. We don't want any of the skin from the eggplant, we just want the flesh. And once we have all the flesh from the eggplant, I'm just gonna pop that into a blender. You could use a food processor. And just blend that until it's smooth into a nice puree. That's the texture we're looking for. Gonna add that to a bowl here. And taking this extra time to roast and puree the eggplant is really gonna pay off for this meatball recipe. Eggplant's done. Now I got a small white onion. I'm just gonna cut this down. Cut it in half. Just peel this, and we want to small dice this onion. It's very important that you small dice the onion because we don't want large chunks of onion in our meatball mixture. So make your knife cuts as close together as possible. And then just run your knife through the onion and you'll have a nice small dice. So with our onions cut, have a pan here, add some olive oil. I'll put this over medium-low heat and add our onions. We just want to cook them down until they're translucent. We don't want to get much color on these onions. So low and slow is the way to go. Hit them with a little bit of salt to pull out the moisture, a touch of pepper. Let these go for about 10 minutes. I'm going to keep stirring this. Keep your eye on it. We don't want this to burn. After 10 minutes, our onions are cooked down. They're translucent. And we're ready to add some garlic to this. I'm going to be adding 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm going to grate the garlic in. Minced garlic works just as well, but as with our onions, we don't want large chunks of garlic in our meatball mixture. So once our garlic is grated in, we could cook this for about another minute or so. It's not going to take long to cook. We don't want the raw garlic flavor in there, so a minute should be fine. We'll take our onion garlic mixture, put that in a bowl, we'll set that aside. Now I have the meat here for our meatballs, and this is 2 pounds of meat with 1 pound of ground pork and 1 pound of ground chuck 80-20, and that means 20% fat. You need the fat in the meatball mixture for flavor and to help bind the meat together. Now I have 3 slices of bread here. This is a honey wheat bread. You could use any bread you like. White bread works fine. I'm just going to cut the crust off. And basically what I'm going to make here is called a panade. And panade is a French word, and all it is a mixture of starch and liquid. In this case, we have bread, and I'm going to be adding some milk to it. And it's going to tenderize the meat, and it's going to keep it moist. So we'll just add that bread to a bowl, along with a 1/4 cup of whole milk. Then take a fork and mash it down until it resembles oatmeal. Just like that. That's our panade. We'll set that aside. Now I have some fresh parsley here. 1/2 cup. Roll it up and just run our knife through it. This is going to add color and flavor to the meatballs. Just like that, finely chopped. So now we're ready to put everything together and roll out these meatballs. I'm going to generously season the meat mixture with some salt, fresh cracked pepper, some dried oregano, We'll bring in our panade, add that to the meat. Our pureed eggplant, it's about half a cup. Our onion and garlic mixture that's been cooked down. 1 egg to help bind everything together. And then I have parmigiano reggiano cheese. We're going to freshly grate in a 1/4 cup of this. At least a 1/4 cup. More is fine. Half a cup of Italian breadcrumbs. And then bring back our chopped parsley. Freshly washed hands, just mix everything together. We don't want to overwork it, just gently fold everything together. And the mixture should be sticky, but not enough to stick to your hands. It should come off your hands. If it's too sticky, add a little more breadcrumbs. This looks good. So on a sheet tray with parchment paper, just roll them out. I like to roll them to the size a little bit larger than a golf ball. And then just repeat for the rest of the mixture. Damp hands helps here so the meat doesn't stick too much. You don't have to go crazy with the size as long as they're relatively the same size. If you really want to be exact, you can weigh them out to 120 grams each. So I have a pot of tomato sauce going here. This is my homemade tomato sauce recipe. If you didn't see that video, I'll put a link at the top of the screen and a link in the description. We're going to finish the meatballs in this sauce. We have all the meatballs rolled out and we're ready to fry them. So I have a pan with some olive oil. We want the oil not scorching hot, but hot enough that it has some sizzle when we add the meatballs to the pan. And we're going to do this in batches. So just gently add the meatballs into the oil. And we want to just brown them. So about 5 minutes on each side. And once all the meatballs are added, just let them do their thing. Don't move them around too much. We don't want to break them apart. It's been about 5 minutes. Gently give them a flip. Got some nice color going there. And then just do the same on the other side, about another 5 minutes. So once the meatballs are browned, we'll remove them from the pan and put them on a sheet tray lined with paper towels. Soak up any excess oil. And then just repeat the process with the rest of the meatballs. If you don't want to do all of them, these freeze really well. So now with the tomato sauce, we're going to finish cooking the meatballs in the sauce because they're just browned. They're not cooked through. Of course, if you don't want to cook them in the sauce, you could finish them in the oven. But adding the meatballs to the sauce is going to add great flavor to the sauce as well as the meatballs because they're just going to soak up that tomato sauce. So gently add them into the tomato sauce. Make sure all the meatballs are completely submerged. Try and be gentle because we don't want to break them apart. And once all the meatballs are submerged in the sauce, just let these simmer for about 15 minutes or so until they're cooked through. So while the meatballs are finishing cooking, I have some Italian prosciutto on a wire rack here. And I'm just going to pop this in a 400 degree Fahrenheit, 200 degrees Celsius oven to crisp it up. It's going to be a great garnish. After 10 minutes, this is beautifully crisp prosciutto. Keep an eye on this because you don't want it to burn. We'll just set that aside. So our meatballs are ready to go. I have a plate here. I'm just going to put some on here. We'll go with 3. Spoon over some more of our sauce. Some parmigiano reggiano grated on top. With some more fresh chopped parsley. And then I chopped up that crispy prosciutto and just scatter that on the plate. I mean, seriously, that's beautiful. The crispy prosciutto with the soft meatballs is just a perfect combination. And that's my homemade meatball recipe. I really encourage you to give this a try. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you next time.